Why is Europe trying to strangle Russia with sanctions? Is Russia's accession to the EU possible, and how could it be dangerous? What role does America play in relations between European Union and Russia? Make yourself comfortable. In this video, we will tell you everything about the relations between Russia, Europe, and the USA. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Here we go. Many people know that Europe was devastated after World War II. Because of the battles with Germany, the whole of Europe suffered. All the energy and money went into waging war. After fascism was defeated, all that was left was devastation and ashes. The eastern part of Europe was controlled by the Soviet Union. In the middle of the 20th century, it included Latvia, Lithuania, Moldavia, Moldova, Poland, and a number of other European countries, as well as the eastern part of defeated Germany. After Germany lost World War II, it was divided into several parts. In 1949, the Federal Republic of Germany appeared on the territory of the American, British, and French zones of occupation, and the German Democratic Republic appeared on the territory occupied by the Soviet Union. It occupied about 30% of the territory now occupied by the United Germany. A devastated Western Europe was counting on the United States of America to help it rebuild. European countries, along with the United States, were terrified by the military might of the Soviet Union. After World War II, there were two superpowers left: the United States and the Soviet Union. At the time, it was led by Joseph Stalin, a brutal dictator who could make dangerous and rash decisions. So Western Europe agreed to accept help from the US for the sake of common security. In 1947, the Marshall Plan was developed and passed. This increased America's influence in Europe. In 1951, the history of the European Union began. It all started with the formation of the European Coal and Steel Union. This raw material was the most necessary for the rise of the economy. It was used to make fuel and weapons. 6 countries, Belgium, Italy, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, France, and Germany joined the association. Within the countries, all tariff and quantitative restrictions on trade in these goods were removed. Later, the countries in the Union became more numerous, the economy grew, and the European Union was formed. Relations between the EU and the USSR were tense. After the collapse of the USSR in the 1990s, relations began to improve. Russia found itself in a state of crisis. The old state had collapsed and the new state had not yet been formed. Russia needed European knowledge and technology to establish production. Europe needed Russian fuel. On this basis, the countries began to cooperate, but it did not last long. The main stumbling block between the EU and Russia is international relations. In the 2000s, the countries of Eastern Europe began to join the EU. Russia opposed the accession of post-Soviet countries to the EU. Think about it. How would you feel about your closest allies and neighbors leaving you? The European Union opposed Russia's interference in the activities of sovereign states. They are free. What claims can be made against them? Russia's interference in Georgia in 2008 and Ukraine in 2014 had a particular impact on the deterioration of relations. Since then, the EU has been relentlessly imposing sanctions on the country. Could the feud between the EU and Russia end with Russia's accession to the EU? No, because the EU was originally created to confront the superpower and would not allow such a scenario. But let's imagine that it is still possible. Russia's accession to the EU would give it a very big influence. The country's economy is very strong. It could rank 4th among the EU economies after Germany, France, and Italy in terms of GDP. Russia would take the largest number of seats in the European Parliament. The seats in the Parliament depend on the size of the population. Russia has more than 140 million people. This is almost twice the population of Germany, the most populous country in the European Union. Russia already has a lever of pressure on the EU. It is a fuel. We talked about Gazprom's monopoly in global gas exports in this video. It is because of Europe's dependence on Russian gas that countries cannot impose truly effective sanctions against Russia. Russian fuel takes up most of the European market. It is simply impossible to replace it in the near future. This has contributed to the crisis of the Ukrainian conflict. This Russian manipulation irritates the EU and worsens relations between the countries. What do the United States and Russia share? These countries have been competing almost since the beginning of the 20th century. The huge superpowers cannot divide their zones of influence. For the US, the position has always been advantageous because of its geography. The country is isolated from potential competitors. That is why America was quietly enriched during World War II by providing Lend-Lease to the belligerent Soviet Union and European countries. The US suffered no damage and continues to receive money for the aid it once provided. The US favors NATO expansion to maintain its influence. Russia, in turn, sees this as a direct threat to its national security. Russia is particularly acutely sensitive to the NATO operation in Kosovo. The conflict in Ukraine is directly related to Ukraine's potential accession to NATO. Despite the agreement signed earlier with Russia, the US is concerned about Russia's growing influence on the global economy. Moscow is frighteningly active in building relations with Beijing, New Delhi, and African countries, which the United States are also interested in. Russia and the US have the most powerful militaries in the world, and their direct conflict would cause disaster for all. The leaders of the countries realize this, so they conduct their conflicts on foreign territories. The countries of Europe, Asia, and Arab countries are becoming the battlefield of these powers. The European Union has found itself in a predicament. Despite numerous sanctions, it cannot seriously influence Russia. At the same time, the US is in no hurry to help Europe, as it avoids an open conflict with Russia. Unfortunately, it is not known how this clash will end. It is not political leaders who suffer in international conflicts, but ordinary people. Subscribe to the channel and like this video to keep up to date with all important events and learn interesting facts about Russia. Thank you for watching this video. See you soon. Bye.